Hello and welcome to World News on TVP World. I'm Marie Casio. European leaders have condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin after a weekend of deadly missile and drone attacks on Ukraine, which killed at least 47 people. The fiery comments come before EU foreign ministers discuss ways of supporting the war-torn country at talks in Luxembourg. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has more from the Belgian capital.
Foreign ministers are convening in Luxembourg on Monday to discuss further support for Ukraine. This will come in the form of a 17th sanction package targeting individuals responsible for propping up the Kremlin's war machine, as well as that country's shadow fleet. This support is underscored by a spate of deadly attacks carried out by Russian President Vladimir Putin on a range of Ukrainian cities, which has left at least 47 people dead and hundreds wounded. Now, this criticism was particularly strident from Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski. Let's take a listen to what he had to say in the morning of Monday.
Ukraine unconditionally agreed to a ceasefire over a month ago. The heinous attacks on Kryvyi Rih and on Sumy is Russia's mocking answer. I hope that President Trump, the US administration, see that the leader of Russia is mocking their goodwill, and I hope the right decisions are taken.
Mr. Sikorski, of course, is referencing the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy inviting the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, to witness the devastation brought by Russia. It comes roughly 1 month after a ceasefire deal was inked in Jeddah, hopefully halting these attacks. But the criticism was echoed by various leaders from the Baltics. This includes Latvia's Foreign Minister, Beba Braz. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
I don't know what is learning and what is not learning, but the facts are on the ground and in the face of everyone that Russia is killing civilians, and it's killing civilians on the way to the church.
The EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, referenced that more support for Ukraine is needed. However, European leaders as well as Western allies really need to figure out how to isolate the Kremlin. This will put pressure on that country to hopefully stop the fighting. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Well, of course, we're going to discuss, but right now I think we have to put the pressure, the maximum pressure on Russia to really end this war, because it takes two to want peace. It only takes one to want war, and we see that Russia really wants war. And all those who want the killing to stop should put the maximum pressure on Russia.
But it's not totally doom and gloom. We heard from that former Estonian Prime Minister that she has roughly secured 2/3 of the buy-in necessary to provide Ukraine roughly 2 billion rounds of high-caliber ammunition. This will support that country on the front lines and in the sky and strengthen that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the negotiating table. But we'll find out more at a 3 p.m. press conference later on Monday. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
The first ever high-level political dialogue between the European Union and Palestine is taking place on the sidelines of the EU Foreign Ministers meeting this Monday in Luxembourg. The talks, featuring key figures such as Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski and Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Mustafa, are focused on the ongoing conflict in Gaza and the prospects for a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine.
Led by EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, the talks are centered on the situation in Gaza and the West Bank, as well as the broader Israeli-Palestinian relations. The meeting also addresses EU-Palestine bilateral relations, including the proposed reforms by the Palestinian Authority and potential EU support for these initiatives. This is the first political-level meeting of its kind between the two sides. A press conference summarizing the discussions is scheduled for 5 p.m. GMT, and we will bring you more updates as the story develops.
Another priority during the EU Foreign Ministers meeting in Luxembourg will be the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza as Israel's bombardments continue.
The situation in Gaza is once again catastrophic. Many hostages are still being held hostage. The suffering of people in Gaza can hardly be described in humanitarian terms. We urgently need to return to a ceasefire so that all hostages can finally be released, and so that the 2 million Palestinians who so desperately want to finally be able to live in dignity again can take this step together. The protests against Hamas in Gaza have made it clear that many people in Gaza want an end to Hamas's terror.
In a recent interview with CBS News, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy extended an invitation to US President Donald Trump to visit Ukraine, saying he would welcome him with pleasure. Zelenskyy emphasized the importance of witnessing the devastation of the war firsthand before making any crucial decisions about Ukraine's future.
We want you to come and I think to come and to see. You think you understand what's going on here. Okay, we respect your position. You understand. But please, before any kind of decisions, any kind of formats of negotiations, come to see people, civilians, warriors, hospitals, churches, children, destroyed or dead. Come, look, and then let's move with a plan how to finish the war. You will understand with whom you have a deal. You will understand what Putin did, and we will not prepare anything. It will not be theater with preparing actors in the streets and etc. We don't do this. We don't need it. You can go exactly where you want in any city which has been under attacks. What I said to them, just to come and to understand.
Donald Trump's anger at the American broadcaster CBC has not subsided. After watching Sunday's episode of 60 Minutes, the president lashed out on his social media site, Truth Social, calling for maximum fines and punishment against CBC and its parent company, Paramount. In two separate posts on Truth Social, Trump slammed 60 Minutes over what he called a doctored interview with then Vice President Kamala Harris, an issue at the center of an ongoing lawsuit against CBC. He also rallied against Sunday night's reports on Greenland and the war in Ukraine, accusing the network of portraying him in a negative light. He urged FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, whom he appointed to the position, to impose substantial penalties on CBC, accusing the broadcaster of what he called unlawful and illegal behavior. Trump said CBC is no longer a news outlet but a political tool and should have its broadcasting license revoked. I just wanted to make a correction there. I meant CBS, of course, not CBC. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One later that same day, Donald Trump called the Russian strike on Sumy, quote, a mistake. When asked to clarify whether he believed the attack was unintentional, Trump repeated that it was a mistake without clarifying who had briefed him on the incident.
I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake, but I think it's a horrible thing. I think the whole war is a horrible thing. I think the war is, for that war to have started, is an abuse of power. This country would have never allowed that war to have started if I were president.
We're told they made a mistake. Do you mean it was unintentional?
They made a mistake. I believe it was. Look, you're going to ask them. This is Biden's war. This is not my war.
In Ukraine's southeastern Zaporizhia region, a Russian drone attack ignited a fire at a gas station, but the flames were quickly extinguished with no injuries reported, according to regional governor Ivan Fedorov. The attack comes despite a ceasefire agreement reached in March, in which both Russia and Ukraine agreed to refrain from targeting each other's energy infrastructure. However, both sides have since accused the other of violating these agreements.
Meanwhile, late on April 13th, a Russian drone strike on Odessa injured at least 5 people and started fires that damaged civilian infrastructure, including a major roadway, a car repair shop and several vehicles. A nearby medical facility also sustained significant damage, though no patients were wounded. This attack comes amid ongoing US efforts to mediate a ceasefire, as Moscow continues its assault despite previous agreements. Just a day earlier, on Palm Sunday, a Russian ballistic missile attack on Sumy killed 34 and injured 117, including 2 children.
Germany is prepared to supply war-torn Ukraine with long-range Taurus missiles, according to prospective Chancellor Friedrich Merz. In a Sunday night interview with public broadcaster ARD, Merz said Kiev needs support to, quote, get ahead in the conflict. Asked if he would be willing to supply Ukraine with the Taurus missiles, a request Ukraine has made for months, Merz, who is set to take office as the Chancellor of Germany next month, said that he would do so in coordination with European allies. He stressed that the UK, France and the US are already supplying Kyiv with cruise missiles and argued that Germany should follow suit if agreement is reached. In the same interview, Merz condemned Sunday's deadly Russian attack on Sumy, calling it a serious war crime, and stressed that Ukraine urgently needs more military aid to win the war against Russia. The Ukrainian SBU security forces have arrested a military instructor accused of working for Russian intelligence and plotting assassination attempts against Ukrainian military commanders. The SBU detained a double agent who was reportedly working for both Russia's Federal Security Service FSB and the military intelligence agency GRU. His mission was to eliminate top commanders at a training ground near Yavoriv, located in the Lviv region, just 40 kilometers from Lviv and about 20 kilometers from the Polish border. Local authorities in Albania have reported the arrest of a man accused of offering money in exchange for a vote ahead of the country's upcoming elections. The suspect's identity was not released, but he was described as a 38-year-old man. He is accused of attempting to buy a vote in the interest of a political entity. Investigators arrested him on charges of active corruption in elections. The incident occurred just ahead of Albania's parliamentary elections, scheduled to take place on May 11th. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Hanoi, Vietnam on Monday for a two-day state visit aimed at improving economic relations between the two countries. The trip comes as China urges the U.S. to put an end to the ongoing trade war and return to, quote, the right path of mutual respect.
During his visit in the Vietnamese capital, Chinese President Xi Jinping will hold talks with his Vietnamese counterpart, the Vietnamese Prime Minister, and other state officials. Strengthening trade relations between the two countries will be a key focus. According to China's foreign ministry, Beijing is expected to sign dozens of deals with Hanoi, including possible investment and cooperation arrangements to develop Vietnam's railway network. The visit also marks the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and Vietnam. The broader goal of the trip is to strengthen China's ties with its neighbors.
Vargas Llosa, the Peruvian Spanish Nobel Prize-winning author, has died at the age of 89. He was one of the key figures responsible for a global boom in Latin American literature.
Over a career that spanned more than 50 years, Vargas Llosa enchanted readers with his intellectual rigor and lyrical prose. With more than 50 works to his name, the author will be best remembered for novels such as The Time of the Hero, Conversation in the Cathedral, and The Feast of the Goat, which dealt with the topic of power and corruption. Vargas also launched a failed bid for the Peruvian presidency and triumphed as a Nobel laureate in 2010. In a statement on Sunday, the novelist's 3 children said that his departure will sadden his relatives, his friends, and his readers around the world.
And that concludes World News at 2 p.m. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.